Hello. So this is my review of my SVS PB1000, and this is the standard version and not the newer Pro version, just for clarification. So those of you who may follow my channel, you may be wondering what happened to your RSL Subwoofer 10S. Well, still have it, still love it. But what happened was a few months after I got it, I ended up being in a position where I had the funding for a second subwoofer. So I originally planned on going with a second RSL Subwoofer 10S. However, supply issues have put kind of a back order on them. So I was looking around just seeing if there were any other comparable options, and I happened upon SVS's website right as they were having an outlet sale. So I managed to snag what was at that time a regular $500 price subwoofer for $400, and it still has the 45-day in-home trial, still has the 5-year comprehensive warranty. So I figured in addition to that, this was a golden opportunity for me to get an SVS PB1000 and have an RSL Subwoofer 10S and compare the two side by side. And then of course, you know, if it didn't pan out or whatever, I could at least return the SVS PB1000 if I didn't measure up to or didn't meet expectations. So what ended up happening was I got this guy over their Memorial Day holiday sale, and they do every holiday usually have at least a few of these that pop up, and so for the price, they are an incredible value. So anyways, it's got, on the standard version, you got yourself a 10-inch driver there. You've got the large circular port there at the bottom. And then you have that light in the upper left corner there, and it's red for standby, blue means it's on and it's active. So if you're sitting there trying to figure out whether, when you're hooking it up, okay, is it on, is it active, that's what it means. So anyways, it's got the 4 posts in the corner there, and yes, I do have the grill for it, which I pulled off just for demonstration purposes. And the SVS PB1000, you know, it is a much larger footprint subwoofer than what I was used to with the RSL Subwoofer 10S. So that is a consideration if you are looking at getting a subwoofer and maybe your space is a little more cramped. This thing is almost 20 inches in height, and it's fairly deep as well. I would say it's pretty close to the same length as it is in height. So it definitely, you know, it's a longer, taller subwoofer. Width-wise, though, is actually pretty comparable to the Subwoofer 10S and might even be just slightly more narrow. So that is something to consider, though, if you're looking at it, is that, generally speaking, this is a much larger footprint. So I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a chance just to see the plugins and hookups on the back. Okay. So you can see here you got your standard on-off with the plug-in over there. On the bottom right, you've got your speaker level inputs. Got your RCA's ins and outs, as well as your LFE there. Then above that, you have your auto standby, basically your auto on and your regular on all the time switch. Now, I do like the fact that the SVS has this option to have both the auto on or just the regular on. So that way, if there's a malfunction with the auto on or something like that, you at least have an option there with a subwoofer. That's something that I actually don't like about the Subwoofer, is that you have 2 choices, off or auto on, and that's it. Which I like having the standard on selector there as a backup option in case something goes wrong with the auto on, because it does happen. Right above that, you've got your low-pass filter. Most people are going to be setting that to LFE anyway, which is where I have mine at, and letting the receiver do the work since it does a better job at that. You got your phase adjuster from 0 to 180 there, and then at the very top, you got your volume or gain, whichever you prefer to call it. Now, you may notice there that the white hash mark is definitely past the halfway point. I have a very large open area that this subwoofer is operating in. I measured it out, and we're talking about 31.5 feet and measured by 17.5 feet, and then 11 foot for the ceiling at the highest point. So it is in a very large open area, part of the reason why I wanted to have 2 subwoofers. So anyways, those are the basics as far as the back of the subwoofer is concerned. Okay, so now this is back in my usual spot where I normally have the subwoofer mounted. So you can see it there, it's got its blue active light on because I've turned it back on, hooked it back up and everything, so it's currently active. It usually, with the auto off, it takes probably about 15, 20 minutes or so once the signal's gone, and then it goes ahead and shuts itself off. So it varies between the subwoofer companies as far as, you know, when it actually does it, and it does vary a little bit on its own, but generally that's what to expect. So if you're sitting there and you've turned it off and wondering why your subwoofer isn't shutting it off, just give it a little bit of time and it'll go ahead and turn itself off and go into standby mode, at which point you'll see the indicator light go red. So as far as actual observations, the SVS PB1000, you know, honestly, I would say at, you know, like a $350, $400 outlet sale price, I would say that, yes, this is definitely a good value subwoofer. Do I think it was worth the original $500 price that they originally asked for these things? No. At that price point, I would go with a different subwoofer. Now, that said, there are some really interesting things that have happened. If you've been following SVS at all, you may notice that the price on their current model subwoofers, their regular prices, it's gotten honestly ridiculous. The SVS PB1000 Pro, which is the successor to this guy, has gone from a more reasonable $600 to an outrageous $800. And to make matters worse, you can find, even without an outlet sale, if you don't want to wait for one, Crutchfield and Amazon still have some leftover stock of these guys for $450 shipped. So from a value perspective, I would actually say the outlet sale SVS PB1000, the standard one, or even if you want to spend a little extra and go with the Crutchfield or Amazon option, both of those, in my opinion, are better values, because I'm sorry, when you're looking at running dual PB1000s for just a little bit more or the same price if you get the outlet ones of the SVS PB1000 Pro, it's just ridiculous. The SVS PB1000 Pro is just not that much better to demand that huge of a disparity in price. So in my opinion, this is actually the better value subwoofer at this point. So if you're sitting there on the fence, it's like, oh, well, you know, I can go with the SVS PB1000 Pro and this and that, whatever. And I don't know. I personally think that there's a lot more hype there than actual delivery, and that's just my personal opinion. I know I may offend some people with that, but I don't care. So anyways, the SVS PB1000, I will say that, you know, personally, I actually prefer my SVS, or not SVS, excuse me, my RSL Subwoofer 10S just a little bit over this one. Some people claim that the SVS PB1000 has a much better, deeper frequency response. Honestly, especially in my large area here, I have not found that to be the case. I found it that I have to drive it harder. I only run my RSL Subwoofer 10S at about 50% volume or gain, whichever you prefer. And I run my SVS PB1000 at about 70 to 75% gain. So, or volume, as I said, whichever term you prefer. So anyways, I have to drive it harder, and generally speaking, I find that, you know, even when this thing's getting into the lower frequency extensions, I find my RSL Subwoofer 10S is doing the same thing. So I would say maybe there's a little bit of an edge there, but realistically, I would say both subwoofers are fairly comparable. So honestly, you know, it really comes down to your budget, availability, and space that you have. So you know, when it comes down to the two subwoofers, if you've got the space and you're more concerned about the availability or whatever, then yeah, I mean, if you find an SVS PB1000, you know, as I said, especially if you're getting an outlet one for $350, $400, absolutely. At that price, I would have no problem recommending it. You know, if at around $450 as compared to, you know, about $430, which is what the RSL Subwoofer 10S currently goes for. I would say it's kind of a toss-up depending on, you know, just what's more important to you in terms of, you know, space, footprint, availability. I will give the edge to SVS in that it does offer a little bit longer of a trial period than the Subwoofer 10S. And you do get a 5-year warranty on the amp as opposed to a 2-year warranty on the amp with the RSL Subwoofer 10S. So there are some definite advantages there. So it all depends on what's most important to you. But I would say yes, for, you know, say a $350 to $400, if you get it on an outlet sale, yeah, I would have no qualms recommending this SVS PB1000. And even, you know, as I said, if you're maybe, you know, a little more pressed for time and you don't mind spending the extra $50 and getting it from Amazon or Crutchfield, then yeah, I mean, it's still a pretty good value even at that price. And anyways, that's all I've got, and thanks for watching.